I'm in the top 20k in the world right now, and with my wildcard active, I've made 11 changes to my squad. So let's take a look at those changes and how I might line up ahead of that game week 3 deadline. Just before we get stuck into the team, I have to take 2 seconds out of my time to say a huge thank you for all the support lately. It really has been amazing to see. And of course, if you want weekly FPL content, please do consider dropping a subscribe on the channel. The goal for the season now is 500 subscribers. But let's take a look at my goalkeeper for this team. And I've gone with Emi Martinez. Now, for me, Martinez's fixtures are fantastic over the next few game weeks. And I suppose the real competition in this wildcard for that goalkeeper spot is David Raya. And just for me, on Arsenal's defence and sort of Arsenal's goalkeeper position, in terms of their fixtures in the next 3 weeks, you've got Brighton at home, which I do think is a decent fixture, although I do think Brighton could nick a goal. It's really game week 4 and 5, which are kind of tricky for me in putting an Arsenal defender in straight away, because you've got Spurs away and Man City away, and they just don't scream like clean sheet games. And I think if you're picking David Raya, you're really picking him for the clean sheets. Although he has made some really great saves in the first 2 weeks, I think it's mainly clean sheets you're picking David Raya for, obviously being a goalkeeper. So yeah, I've gone with Martinez there, but that could change to a David Raya. I'm just not sure yet, but for me, Martinez starts and goal. We've gone with Trent Robinson and Rico Lewis. Sort of Rico Lewis we'll start with because he is the minutes risk player in my team. Obviously, we don't know if he's going to start at West Ham away, but I have a good feeling he will, because he's been playing really, really well for Pep and sort of playing the role that Guardiola played at the end of last season, almost similar to that role, and I think he's playing it really, really well. And I suppose if we look now at his sort of heat map just on this side of the screen, playing right back and being allowed to get in those positions in the box is great to see from an FPL pick. Of course, he had that shot that hit the bar against Ipswich, and to be honest, he should have scored that. He shouldn't have hit it so hard. There was no need to. But yeah, I really do like Rico Lewis. That's why I've put him in. But I understand that he is a minutes risk, and I suppose I've got players like Dunk on my bench and Greaves if he has good fixtures to come in if Rico Lewis has started to be dropped for Kyle Walker. I suppose moving on to the middle now in Robinson. Sort of decent fixtures in the next maybe 3 to 4 game weeks for Robinson. A sort of average position similar to Rico Lewis. He is getting nice and wide for Fulham, and quite high up on the pitch as well, so that's a good sign in terms of his playing position. And I believe he got an assist last game week, which was great to see as well. So yeah, Robinson for me, I've caught the price rise on him. I kind of want to keep him in the squad just maybe for a few more weeks to see how Fulham get on. Of course, we don't know too much about teams at the moment just because it's been 2 weeks. But yeah, Robinson I really do quite like. But for me, my favourite defender of them all is Trent. Sort of an expected goal involvement of 1 in the first 2 games is miles above everybody else in terms of data. I think the closest person next is Christian Romero at 0.5 expected goal involvement. So yeah, Trent is a really, really great asset for my team. Being 7 million, obviously you can't fit in everyone's team, but for me, I think I would rather pay sort of that extra 1 million over someone like a Robertson for Liverpool, just because I think he is a little bit more, not polished or attacking per se, but I think you're going to get maybe a few more points out of Trent than you would a Robertson. And obviously Tsimikas does have a little bit of pressure on that left-back position if things are going a little bit bad for Robertson. But I suppose you could say the same thing for Trent and Conor Bradley with that early-ish Trent substitution we've seen in the last fixture. Of course, I did mention briefly about Dunk and Greaves there. They're kind of just there as solid options for their teams. Obviously, Brighton and Ipswich, both of those coming from those teams. For me, Dunk next week has a really good fixture, and of course Greaves has a sort of good fixtures dotted around in the next few, and I suppose can come in if he does have a good fixture. Obviously he has a Southampton away fixture in the next few weeks, which I think could be a good fixture for Ipswich. But yeah, that's sort of the defence. To be honest, really happy with it. I think the only changes I would make maybe is adding an Arsenal defender in, but I'm just not sure with them 3 front fixtures. Moving up now to the midfield, things do get quite exciting when you look at some of the names that we're dealing with here. Palmer, Salah, Eze, Saka, and Morgan Rogers. I suppose we'll start with Morgan Rogers being the cheapest player in the midfield at 5.1 million now, I do believe he is. I did manage to get him at 5 million with the early activation of my wildcard just after game week 2. But for me, with Morgan Rogers, obviously it's pretty simple. He passes the eye test with absolute flying colours. At times, he looked like the best player on the pitch in that Arsenal fixture. And for me, I think it's worth bringing him in for 5.1 even if you didn't manage to get him at 5 million. I think he's pretty locked in this team for me with the good fixtures, with him passing the eye test with flying colours. I think he's my cheaper option in this midfield. Of course, Smith Rowe could be an option at that point. Of course, I do have money in the bank with this draft, but I really, really do like Morgan Rogers. Moving alongside him to Saka, though. Yes, Saka's fixtures aren't ideal over the next 3 weeks, but I kind of want him in early for the fixture swing from game week 6 onwards. And I think he does have the ability to score against some of the teams that he's facing, at least in the next 3 weeks when he's got harder fixtures. So yeah, I do think it's a good option now to bring in Saka at 10 million, of course. But yeah, that Arsenal fixture swing in 6 is really enticing. I want to be prepared for the fixture swing in some way by having an Arsenal midfielder, at least if I'm not having an Arsenal defender. Eze is an interesting one. Now, a lot of people have sold Eze, and I've kind of said this in, replies to your DMs or replies to comments on TikTok. By the way, if you aren't following me on TikTok, it is a really good place to follow me on. I do post quite a lot on there. But yeah, for me, Eze is a buy or a hold for you guys if you haven't sold them yet. I haven't placed him officially into my FPL team because he may face a price drop before the deadline. I'm hoping he does because then I can get him cheaper. But yeah, I think he's just been so unlucky in the first 2 fixtures in terms of not, getting the points. He kind of has been putting in the performances, but the points are just not there. I suppose I kind of said this in the transfer tips video about Nketiah joining. Maybe there's a little bit more quality joining up for Palace soon in Nketiah that who can really tidy things up in the final third. But I suppose as Palace kind of gel towards each other without Elise now, I think things will get better for Palace. I'm just muddling up my words there, getting excited about Eze, but yeah, I am pretty excited to own Eze. It maybe was a mistake not to start the season with him, and I do think I'm really lucky to not be kind of punished for not owning him. Similar to Bruno Fernandes. If you have Bruno Fernandes, you are really lucky as unlucky as an FPL manager, because I do think those players should be on a few points to start the season. Salah, I think we don't really have to say too much about Salah. I like his fixtures coming up. Of course, he tends to do quite well against Man United normally. Obviously, I don't necessarily like historical data too much, but with Salah, he's just Mr. Consistent in a way. He's getting good chances this season, and I think it will continue to happen. There's a slight thought of maybe I could go away from Salah and go with Jota, who's someone a little bit cheaper, but I think the minutes risk and pressure from Darwin Nunez and Gakpo, and obviously the new signing Chiesa will put a little bit more pressure on that Liverpool front line as well, and give it a little bit more support in terms of if someone does get injured. But yeah, I think Salah will maybe get a shout in my draft. It's sort of up in the air at the moment, but I do really like Salah. And of course, finishing off there with Cole Palmer, the captain of my FPL team. I think he's got a great opportunity against Palace to get a really decent haul. Palace defensively are decent, but they've been a little bit shaky at times at the start of the season, and I'm hoping that Palmer can kind of continue the run of form he started in that Wolves game, obviously having an immense game against Wolves. So yeah, 3 assists, 1 goal. Can we see that again against Palace? I really do hope so. Now, one of the bigger reasons I went for a wildcard 3 was to have a big structural change to my team in terms of owning just one of Salah or Haaland. Of course, with this draft, I have went with a Salah only draft. Although Haaland only drafts may tempt me before the end of the game week 3 deadline, but yeah, at the moment, if I had to pick right now, I would go with a Salah-only draft. Of course, having both has been amazing to start the season off for me. Of course, getting into the top 20k in the world has been great, but I feel as though I have a much more balanced team with just one of them, and I kind of want that structure going forward into the next few weeks. So who has came in up front. Ollie Watkins is the first player to come in, and I suppose my thinking here is he had 2 great chances against Arsenal that he should have put away, and it's kind of encouraging to see that he got those chances against the best defence in the league in Arsenal. So I'm hoping with the good fixtures he can really kind of not match Haaland, but get points similar to Haaland over these good fixtures and kind of, you know, be less, maybe make the experience less painful in not owning Erling Haaland. So that's kind of the thought process with Ollie Watkins. Good fixtures, and I'm hoping he gets those chances put away in the next few weeks. And I suppose when you're looking at Evan Nielsen in this side, you might think he's completely out of place, but it's sort of a differential option. I think this sort of fixture exchange between him and João Pedro that I'll show you right now is quite favourable. I really do quite like, and I think the upside is quite high. But obviously we don't know a lot about Evan Nielsen at the moment, so that could change to somebody else. I could even just start João Pedro if I think he'll score against Arsenal, but I'm just not too sure. He will get the ball in positions that he wants it against Arsenal. But sort of the first fixture here for Bournemouth, you've got an Everton away fixture. Now, I think Everton have been absolutely appalling to start the season. I think that theme will continue for a few weeks until they start getting some injuries, back into their team and sort of sorted out. But yeah, sort of starting off with that Everton away fixture for Evan Nielsen, and then in game week 4 going back to João Pedro with that Ipswich at home fixture, and then obviously a Forest home fixture in game week 5. Then we would end up going back down to a Southampton at home fixture for Evan Nielsen. Of course, the game week 6 fixture for for João Pedro isn't too bad with the Chelsea away fixture, but obviously the Southampton at home fixture has a higher upside for Evan Nielsen there. And then in game week 7, you've kind of got a decision to make there. Tottenham at home for João Pedro, or Leicester away from home for an Evan Nielsen. Yeah, that sort of rotation between those two players I did think was really interesting. Of course, Evan Nielsen not highly owned whatsoever, so a little bit of a differential in a team of sort of highly owned premium players. You've kind of got a little bit of a gem there, in my opinion, although I'm really not sure I will go with that pairing because obviously we don't know too much about Evan Nielsen at the moment. But sort of looking at that team there, I do think it's really strong going on from game week 3 onwards. Of course, you've got at least one Arsenal player there in Bukayo Saka for the fixture run coming up in game week 6. And of course, I will be able to bring in an Arsenal defender for that sort of fixture run starting up. And of course, Watkins could go to a Havertz in that case to cover that triple up on Arsenal that I kind of want to achieve in game week 6. Of course, I can move Salah in and out of the team and get Haaland in when I think he's going to have good weeks. Sort of Palmer is sort of a movable option as well, but I really do want to keep a hold of Palmer for a longer time than I would Salah. I just think the exchange of Salah and Haaland is going to be essential to making this only Salah and only Haaland draft work. But yeah, sort of that's the end product team there. Obviously, captain on Palmer there. I could captain Salah, I could captain Watkins, I could even captain, maybe even you could argue Saka with that Brighton at home fixture. It should be pretty good for him. But yeah, so that's the team. 96% rating on Fantasy Football Hub. Obviously, going forward and planning my team, I've achieved that rating. So if you do want to check that out, by the way, they have extended their 50% off to the end of September now. So if you want to see what Fantasy Football Hub has to offer, and sort of, obviously I use all of their data in my videos, go into my description and click that link for the 50% off. But yeah, that is the Wildcard 3 team that I could go with before the Game Week 3 deadline. As always, to end off today's video, I want to give you at home a huge thank you for supporting the FPL Mugs YouTube channel. The growth lately has been absolutely insane, and I appreciate every single one of you who has subscribed and supported my channel. And if you haven't subscribed yet and you have enjoyed today's video, please consider dropping a subscribe. It, of course, means so much to me as a small creator. But that is everything for today's video. Thank you so much for watching again, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.